when I heard them from the other room, I was like, oh my God, this is so much better. This could work. This is Swatter. This is definitely it.
This is Champagne is Also a Band podcast. One songwriter, one song. I'm Sven, your host for a journey into the music of Champaign-Urbana. Recorded in the Blue Box studio with a songwriter from the Champaign-Urbana music scene, past or present. Champagne is Also a Band podcast is proud to be a part of the Champagne Showers Podcast Network. Welcome to Champagne is Also a Band podcast. Today I have Shauna Miller. You may know her from such bands as Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, her solo project Will-O-the-Wisp, her singing backup on Rekisto, and her duet with her brother on the Erranters. The Erranters. There we go. The Erranters, which I was afraid I was going to screw up, which I did, but I still nailed it in the end. But anyway, Shauna, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Today we're going to be talking about your song, Fly Swatter, which was released as a single with the band Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. So without further ado, let's listen to the song.
This mission
hands off my body. You have no right to anybody. Get your hands off my body. You have no right to anybody. Get your hands off my body. You have no right to anybody. Get your hands off my body. You have no right to anybody. Get your hands off my body. You have no right to anybody. Get your hands off my body. You have no right to anybody. No, I'm proud of who I am, and I don't give a damn. I'm proud of who I am, and I don't give a motherfucking good goddamn. No, I don't.
Welcome back. So, of course, my first and favorite question to always ask is, what came first? Was it the music or was it the lyrics?
So the lyrics came first for me in a way because it's based off of a poem that I attempted to write many, many years ago. I knew I needed to put it to music somehow, but the original poem is really, like, I came across it somewhat recently and I'm like, wow, this is not the best. But the ideas are there. At practice, the guys were sort of noodling around with the part that you hear that's like, do-do-do-do, do-do-do. And while I was in the bathroom, and I hear it, I'm like, I have a poem for that. I know I have something for this. And I come out the bathroom, I'm like, y'all, I have something. We just, hold on. I have an idea at least. And like, I just need to flesh it out. Let's just keep playing it and keep playing it until I have it figured out. And so I wrote most of the stuff then. And then I think in later practice, we added the get your hands off my body part to it.
Okay. It's interesting, though, when you mentioned that you came back to the original poem, it just didn't work because you feel like it wasn't written as well as you would have liked it to? Or like, what was the part that made you think, oh, this isn't the same?
So
like,
I write most of my lyrics just on my notes app on my phone. So I had tweaked the poem already to make it more lyrical, but I just didn't have a tune for it, I guess. I had an idea. I knew I could adapt it to what they were doing, and I think that's why I had the aha moment in the bathroom, like, I have something for this. And basically took what I had tweaked from the original poem that I had written in my notes app, and then fleshed it out from there. So I kind of had a general idea of what I wanted it to be. And once I heard the tune, I was like, I have exactly what we need for this. I was excited, I guess.
I don't know how old the original poem was.
I think it was about probably 2010 was when I wrote it originally. And it's based off of an unfortunate situation from 2009 where I was sexually assaulted and I ended up needing to get an abortion on account of that. And apologies for the trigger warning, I guess. I don't know. While I was sitting there, I was looking around and thinking about how much stigma there is around needing to get an abortion for whatever reason it is. And how every single person in this room has a valid reason for being here. It doesn't have to necessarily be some really sad thing like what happened to me. As I was sitting there towards the end, some of the women in the room started opening up about the fact, like, I just can't afford another kid. And things like that. Like I said, completely valid. So it was one of those things where I'm like, every single person in this room needs to do the task and, like, figure this out, basically.
Right.
And we shouldn't be treated like we're doing anything more than swatting a fly and getting rid of this nuisance.
I felt like, first of all, I'm very sorry that happened, and it's not.
Appreciate that.
I mean, in the end, it's nobody's business but your own.
Right.
And I appreciate, but that's what I'm saying. I appreciate that you shared that with the audience. I originally tried to have this as something where it's like, this is just a conversation between us two, and then you kind of have to address the fourth wall sometimes, but
right.
Anyway,
it's all right.
But one of the things I kept thinking about, what the interpretation of what the fly is every time, and even the idea of the fly being an oppressive governmental or even religious organization or body that decides that it should have somehow the purview over someone else's decisions or bodily autonomy. There was this switch of like, what is the fly in this scenario?
You could definitely interpret it as just being something else, and maybe I shouldn't explain it completely to where people can have their idea of what that fly might be. That's what it is for me. That was basically the reason for calling it that. Maybe I'm a little too, I don't know if relaxed is the right word, but like maybe blasé, I don't know, about abortion, because I think it should be available to everyone. I am fully like someone who just considers it like this is just something you have to do in order to continue living your life. And other people make it a much bigger deal than that for whatever reason, even if they do agree that is basically what it is at the end of the day. So that's kind of why I liked comparing it to something that's just like, oh, this is buzzing by my ear. Or like, oh.
Right. In the second section of the first verse, there's I scan this waiting room riddled with patient flies. The good old dyslexic me was just like, patient files. Files when I was reading it, listening to you saying that, but also kind of the homonym of patient and patient, like
correct.
These patient waiting flies. I enjoyed that kind of play in terms of like, I don't know if you had the files and the flies and etc. in mind, but when I saw that, my brain flipped them and saw it as files. But I also thought about this idea of even beyond just abortion, but also healthcare in general. But like the patient flies, the patient files, the patient people, and whatever it means to waiting to swat their demons. And for some people, demons are a variety of different health issues, as well as like mental as well as physical health issues. So I thought that it was nice that even though your intention was a specific thing, I feel like there's a wide interpretation that could be there, which is, I mean, sometimes, yes, it's great when a song is very like pointed and specific, but also like I enjoy it when it has the sense that has a universal that like, hello everybody, we should be more concerned about, and maybe just the idea of just, how about some universal health care for once?
Right. Absolutely. I've always felt that way I like ponder about the term patient a lot for that same reason, for the fact that like you go to the doctor, even if you're just there for a routine checkup, you're a patient. You have to wait to get into the room. They hope that you're going to be patient about it, for one, but especially when like you may not have the healthcare and the funds to really be doing anything beyond a basic checkup. So you're sitting there hoping that nothing else is going to come up when you leave that doctor's appointment. Then you have the like prolonged patient situations such as cancer and things like that are a whole different breed and ball game to the term. I feel like you're basically a patient for the entirety of however long you're going through that.
I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the instrumentation. You mentioned that you kind of had this poem and some lyrics on the back burner, at least, or in the back of your head, and then you left the room and then overheard some band members were playing around with the riff or the melody or whatever. I'm losing my words on what this term is, but I mean the theme that happens throughout the piece. Like, what was it about what they were playing that you said, oh, this could work? Like, what made it feel right to you?
I don't know how other people typically write music, but whenever I get a lyrical idea, I oftentimes will also get some sort of very basic melody in my head of how maybe it could go like this if we put the music behind it to make it so. I kind of had an idea for the melody, and what they were playing was very close, and I'm like, I can tweak this to, again, tweaking both the lyrics to fit and tweaking whatever melody I had before. The previous melody I had before was not as good as this one either. So it was one of those things where when I heard them from the other room, I was like, oh my God, this is so much better. This could work. This is Swatter. This is definitely it.
And one of the things that I kept thinking about is the theme or the chord progression. It has a descending feel to it because there's a note that chromatically decides to just drop down that half step as part of that progression. And it feels like when listening to it, that it's like this beginning of descent, but then it starts back over. And I'm thinking about, as someone that is swatting a fly, you're taking care of that situation and then getting back up to the start again. And I feel like the way that progression happens is it feels like you're the beginning of a descent, but then it doesn't descend because it returns back up to the top and everything's okay. Not that,
sure.
Not that everything's okay, but just that there's a sense of like a return to at least a fighting chance kind of idea. I don't know if that's, I sometimes I don't like the way I use my words, but that's
okay.
What it feels like when I hear that chord progression, is that it's like you're almost on a downward descent and then it comes back up and then you restart over, and then it's just, if that makes sense. I don't know if that...
it makes sense.
The instrumentation with Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, it sounds like you've got drums, guitar, vocals, a saxophone. Mm-hmm. Is that a glockenspiel?
It's a one of those drum pads that you can program to make a bunch of different sounds.
Okay.
And it programs it to make the mallet percussion sound.
Ah, okay. And then, and is that a cello or there's like a string instrument in there somewhere?
Not that I know of.
What?
There's obviously the guitars, but like we have a bass guitar, we have a normal guitar, and then we have the saxophone, and like you were saying, the drums, and then the drum pad has the mallets.
I swear I thought there was something in there that made me think that it was a string, but it could be just a long...
That's cool, though.
It could be just a long sustained... Now that I think about it, it's like it could be a long sustained saxophone note held out. That's maybe what it is. Because in the beginning, there's some lower notes that the saxophonist, is that the right?
It is now.
but that they're holding out, that seems to be kind of holding on with the chords. But
sure.
That's so funny. Like, I listened to it and I swear I was like, is there like a cello in there doing like a sustained note or whatever? But anyway, that's really funny. But that's nice because in some ways that contributes to the overall texture to the band, so that it's not necessarily like, oh, that's a saxophone right there. That's, like, then you've got these kind of warm... Not that a saxophone isn't a warm tone, but it tends to be a brighter tone,
sure,
reed instrument. But yeah, with that kind of a lower sound.
Yeah, I love Andrew's saxophone part for that song a lot. I think he does a great job of making his presence known, but also making it really subtle so that everything else can come together, but does it in a way that's just... I don't know. I think it's really pretty and makes it cohesive, I guess.
As a compliment to Andrew, the use of the saxophone actually is there to provide some rhythmic elements as well as some melodic elements, but sometimes when a saxophone comes in and is playing about the same time as the vocals are, sometimes there can be a blurring, or even like they diminish each other because it's like within that same tonal range, or even like just within that scale. But I like what's happening in there, that you manage to complement each other, and then also the guitarist and the saxophonist are playing in such a way that complement each other, or even do a call and response, which is kind of, I think, is really interesting. You don't usually think about in a rock band kind of sound to have like this call and response. I have to say, like, just the use of the saxophone is like, it's very present, but it doesn't overpower you or the rest of the band, which I think is done well. So I appreciate that a lot in this song. I'm always fascinated by the structure of how people tell a story through their music and through their lyrics. I feel like there's a sense of that first verse is definitely like, this is the moment. It's like, this is now. And then the second verse is very much like it's not in the present. So there's a little bit about kind of a future and a past happening in that second verse, because you talk especially, and as I said, like, this is just me interpreting. This is my brain processing your lyrics, and I said, as always, the way I interpret other people's lyrics says more about me than it does about you. So it's like
fair enough.
Because there's that sense of like, you specifically name a year, and so that at least brings you back to 2009 was long ago, nearly my darkest days to date, which definitely puts that in the past. If you think about anything that happened in the past, it's always this, when we deal with things that are based on like memory based, there's so many extra contexts that swirl around that. Like, just as an example, back in like 2006, I had a car accident. It happened at night. It was a rollover, and it was upside down. I remember crawling out, and then what's so strange to me is that I remember basically the ambulance, the EMTs coming in and getting me, and I swear in my memory, I'm like, I remember it as being still light outside, which is so weird. I didn't get a concussion or anything like that, but because it was a rollover, they had to take me by ambulance.
I'm sure.
So, yeah. But the thing is I'm like, how is it? I know that when the accident happened, it was dark out, but yet in my brain, I remember it back as being light out. So in some ways, I just think about this. I took back my night, and now I know when swatting flies never hesitate. And darkest days to date, like in my brain, I was thinking about how I knew it was night, but somehow in my brain, it still remembered being light outside. What I guess I'm trying to emphasize here, what I'm trying to process here is that idea of like, trauma does some really messed up shit to our brains when we reflect back on things that aren't great, or I hated the way I said that, but when we reflect back on things that were traumatic, like, our brains will do everything it can to protect you, but then it's this thing where it hides these should I say Easter eggs on us every once in a while, where all of a sudden, right, where you're like, I don't know, sorry, like, trauma
it's a hell of a
difficult.
Drug.
Trauma is difficult to talk about, because it's just like, as I'm processing my own, like, and thinking about things, like when I refer to the Easter eggs, I mean like, oh, I didn't even know that was there, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's always been there, you just didn't deal with it, and so it just like kind of pops in there.
Very true.
The reason I went through that long explanation was I also thought about the swatting of flies as being, or the flies that we want to swat are those trauma moments that we hold on to that don't serve us, like getting and purging those as well.
I was just going to say that it's kind of, that's why I wrote the line at the end of the first verse, like, ready to swat our demons, or at least we can say we tried, because it's very much like, we're doing this right now and it might help in the moment, but that doesn't mean that we aren't going to have moments later on where we maybe even question our decision, but also just different traumatic events that could pop up later that we're like, oh man, I really was hoping that just nipping this in the bud like I wanted to was going to help me feel a lot better about this other thing, which it did fix the overarching problem, but not the traumatic events that could come up later.
With the end of that second verse, and all my sins I flush away, it's like I have a visceral like reaction of like, from the Judeo-Christian version of what sins implies is that somehow it's your fault, that somehow it's your shortcoming, whatever. But
sure,
I have my own reactions to when people throw around the word sin, so it's just like I like
fair.
This reaction is one of my own bracing, I guess you could say. In my thinking, I was just like, I wish, I understand why you say it, but I also was like, I wish that you didn't have to say it. Does that make sense?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Okay.
I
see
just like
what you're saying.
it may be how you feel, but it's like you shouldn't have to feel that way. Is part of what I wish I could be saying to the person that wrote this. Is when I was interpreting this. So it's just, I don't know. I just
that was part of the reason why I used that term as well, because like a vast majority of abortions like is basically like it is painful, but for the most part you are flushing away something the same way you would be flushing the aftermath of an actual period. And that's literally it. So it's kind of double meaning there of like I'm flushing away all these things that people they claim I'm sinning, they claim I'm a cretin, and all this sort of thing. And I'm flushing it away like, fuck you. I'm none of those things. I'm not a sinner because I don't believe in that shit.
One of the things that I noticed is even though your lyrics are the same in both of the choruses, which is usually how choruses function, but this to me gives a perfect example of the words are the same, but somehow the intention or the feeling behind it is different. And I really enjoy how when you hear it the first time, it feels more like a threat, if that makes sense. Like it's like, hey, there's a fly on the wall, and then no one hears it buzzing at all. Like it's kind of the unspoken bullshit government things. The thing is that a fly can exist and we can choose to ignore it, but eventually the fly becomes so persistent that sometimes we have no choice but to acknowledge it.
Right.
And I feel like in the first chorus, the fly, it's that like looming threat that some people are ignoring, but some people don't have to acknowledge it because of their privilege. But also like some don't need to heed the call is what I was thinking about, is like that fly is there, but people have privilege to ignore it. The way that the second chorus functions after hearing the second verse, it hits me more of like more of a pain thing rather than being a threat. Like this is the point at which everyone acknowledges that fly on the wall, right? Okay. Like no one hears it buzzing at all, but it's more like this. Some don't need to heed the call. Like at that point where it's like some don't need to heed the call, it's like they're already dealing with it. They're not waiting to actually respond to it. It's like, look, I'm already taking care of what needs to happen. I don't need to heed the call because I've already started taking care of it. I'm sorry if I'm getting a little excited here. I do like the contrast that happens between those two choruses because of the context.
That interpretation of it. I've never thought about it that way, and that's really cool, actually. The only thing that's different in my mind about the second chorus is like, oh, I'm going to try to put more oomph into it, because I've always been told that if you repeat something, make the second time more interesting.
Yeah, fair.
So that's why that's literally like all that I really thought about. It's like, well, it's the second chorus, but I like your interpretation a lot better. It makes it seem like there was a lot more intent on my part there. Do you want to know what my thought process behind the lyrics, some don't need to heed the call, or do you want to enjoy your interpretation of it and not have to not know my background,
please do that.
What's the word I'm looking for? My interpretation of those lyrics, I guess.
I'm saying these within the context of me when I first listened to this. Like these are things that I had. I was thinking about it, but it's also, I mean, yes, I'd love to hear what you were thinking about.
So my thought process with that line is when it comes to being a parent at all, some don't need to do that. Some of us don't. I have no intention of being a parent whatsoever. No, thank you. Like, happy that other people are wanting to do it. That is not my thing. I'll be the cool shanty for the rest of time, and that's fine with me. And so it's more along the lines of like the overarching like topic of abortion. Like some people just don't want to be parents, and so they aren't heeding the call that society thinks that we should all be heeding, I guess. Right. And so that's like sort of saying like they're here for that reason. Like some just don't need to heed the call.
Right.
Including myself.
Perfect. Off mic, you mentioned this was recorded live, but you had recorded it in your practice space?
Our friend Robert came over and we set up microphones and stuff, and we basically recorded all of the songs that we had ready at that point. We've added another song since then, but we just recorded everything and put it all on Bandcamp because we wanted to sort of put it out there to different venues in the area and see if anybody was interested in booking us or whatever. So it was basically just us, like, let's just record practice. If you were to look us up on Bandcamp, then that's all of the recordings that we have right now, basically.
I think I kind of said some things that I appreciated about this piece a lot, but I did want to say what my favorite part of this piece is.
Oh, yeah.
I actually think that I like the instrumental, or at least like the what should I say, like the transition after the second chorus. There's that dialogue that pops up between the saxophone and the guitar. It's almost like this conversation, and it's like kind of a back and forth of two different sides of a conversation, as I said before. I appreciate about it as it goes, it feels like it's almost like the conversation sours a little bit. Like the guitar is almost like, I don't want to play with you anymore. Kind of is what I like.
Interesting.
Like the guitar kind of sours, like compared to what's happening with the saxophone. I guess part of what I appreciate about this piece overall is it is very much to me feels like the conversation that we have with ourselves in so many ways, like where you're like, I understand this and I have a feeling about this, and I also like, well, this is the logic, like the emotional and logical course of things where you're like, I want to analyze it this way and I want to feel about it this way, but in some ways it's like sometimes those don't always agree, and I feel like it takes you in that direction. And I like that this voice, in addition to yours, which is the guitar and the saxophone, come out and have that discussion as it says. So I feel like it complements what's all being said, but also like, as much as yes, it's right that we should be able to swat flies, but it doesn't mean that it is easy or a simple decision. But that's what I pick up, and that's why I kind of enjoy that part a lot in terms of the context of the song. With
that sort of idea in mind, you could also see it as like an inner monologue as well, like you're in like your devil and angel on your shoulder sort of thing, trying to be like, no, you're doing the right thing, but also what if you did this other thing? No, don't do that. And this kind of harkens back to like, when swatting flies, never hesitate, because like if you do, things can get much worse very quickly.
So I'm curious, what is your favorite part in the song?
Honestly, my favorite part, and now that you mentioned the musical idea behind where I'm not singing, like I'm like, I like that a little bit more now, actually. Like, but as far as the lyrically, my favorite part is either the end of the second verse, I feel so triumphant whenever I sing that, and then I really enjoy the ending part where I'm like, just like, get your hands off my body. You have no right to anybody. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, you're rhyming body with body, so you're not being that necessarily that creative with your lyrics, but also you kind of are, because like it just goes to the whole idea of like, you just because say you even went home with somebody, that doesn't mean you have a right to that person or whatever. So it could be like, get your hands off my body in the moment, but also it could be like, anytime I tell you somebody no means no. You know,
right?
So it's a simple lyric, but also can kind of be like, and it's something that you can definitely chant and feel like really like, yeah, fuck you.
Why did you pick this song as the song you wanted to talk about today?
It's one of my favorite songs that we have. I love all of our songs, which is kind of nice. Yeah. Like, I'm not tired of any of them, and we play them a lot in practice, so that's cool. I think it's my favorite song to do because it is about this. Yeah. So it's like every time I sing it, I'm kind of giving the person who put me in that situation a massive fuck you, and I like that a lot.
Champagne is Also a Band podcast is proud to support Jubilee Cafe. Jubilee Cafe is a free weekly meal program at Community United Church of Christ, 805 South 6th Street in Champaign, Illinois. Jubilee Cafe serves a home-cooked meal from 5 to 6:30 each Monday. Their mission is to feed hungry people by cooking healthy, delicious meals and by serving their guests restaurant-style with servers waiting on tables. Jubilee Cafe is open to anyone who cares to eat with them. Because food insecurity among students is so high, they serve students as well as others in and around the Champaign-Urbana community who struggle with hunger. Meals are free to all and will be served each Monday evening, located in the accessible lower level of the building at 6th and Daniel Streets in Champaign. For more information on the meal or how to volunteer, go to the Jubilee Cafe CUCC Facebook page or email them at jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. That's jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. Welcome back. So, of course, Shauna, what is your favorite Champaign-Urbana music venue, past or present?
I have been listening to some episodes over the last couple of weeks, so I knew you were going to ask me that, and I was like, there's no way I can narrow it down to just one. I think Rose Bowl is doing amazing stuff. Just the fact that they have music every single day of the week. We don't have nearly as many music venues as we once did. Pandemic did a number on that in a lot of places, not just CU. But unfortunately, we just don't have the number that we used to. So the fact that we do have a place where any night of the week you can go see a show is amazing. And in my opinion, they do a pretty good job of allowing up and coming acts as well as getting touring artists and getting people who maybe do have a following in town that they know will, draw a crowd or whatever. They do a really solid mixture of that. Plus the Hootenanny. You can't go wrong with the Hootenanny. I love that. I need to go there more often, honestly. Mm-hmm. I need to do the Hootenanny more often, but that's always a good time. And I would say the Space as well does a really good job of that. It's just they aren't able to have shows as much, especially them also being a restaurant. I feel like that plays into it. But, their restaurant is delicious, so yeah, you should definitely go.
Well, and then that also frees up some room for drag shows, open mic shows, and things
Heroine's
like that.
Drag Menagerie. I love her.
Yes. Yeah. You mentioned that your first show was at...
Oh, it was... Yeah, I wanted to mention the IMC too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. I just figured...
Thank you for reminding me, because I was like, wait, I'm sure... I know there's other things I wanted to say about this. But the IMC is where we had our first show and where we will have our next show as well. And it's a fundraiser for the local Strides homeless shelter. And Matt, our bass player, has been working with the IMC to get all that squared away, and they've just been really great, saying exactly what needs to be done and everything else, and being really open to just whatever. I sort of keep adding things to the roster, oh, Brian Maxwell wants to speak, and and it's just, and the rolling with the punches and stuff. They've been really good about that, I think. And just the fact that there's a space like the IMC in the area to begin with is huge. Right. So many places of this size don't have those sorts of places where you can go have any sort of fundraiser or an art show, or just where local people can get their voices heard in whatever way they need it to be heard, I guess.
And one of the things I appreciate about the IMC is it has a way of behaving like a business venue, but also at the same time like a DIY venue.
Right.
You get to have
some
more
sort of middle ground, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, you get to have more control over what happens rather than being booked in a show. You get to kind of dictate how that show goes in a way. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but I just appreciate that. Yes, it's that middle ground, and it's a multi-use area that lets you be creative in different ways, and also kind of just celebrate the creative that this community has. So
Sure.
it's really nice.
And then there's like a random bird cage there for some reason. And I think it's like a local that just like has these birds for sale or something. And I'm like, what an interesting addition.
I think maybe it's been a while since I don't know if I've seen that yet. So I'll have to take a look for that at some point.
If you come to the show on January 30th, you might just encounter the birds.
Indeed. Yeah, yes, definitely have to check that out. I'm curious, like, what do you think makes a good music scene?
I'm thinking just overall support of each other, especially, like I said, as venues had been closing and things like that. Like, if you know of a band that wants to perform but doesn't know exactly like how to get booked in like a typical place or whatever, like DIY shows are everywhere in town. There's so many house shows that I'm just not familiar with them because I feel like I like aged out of that scene a little bit, but I want to get back into it for sure. And like just the community in general supporting each other because we're all artists. We're all wanting our art to be shared. So creating the opportunity to do that is important. I wanted to give a shout out in this section to my buddy Nate Wells. I don't know if you're familiar with Wells Farm and like his little music festivals that he'll host out there. He does, I don't know exactly how often he does it, but he usually has something going on out on his property like once or twice a summer, I would say. And my husband and I basically rented out his property, so to speak, to host our wedding/music festival. We had 10 bands, 2 stages. It was awesome. And we had a few like regional acts come in that we were friends with, and so it was one of those things where I'm like, oh, I know no robot from Bloomington will come play for us, so it's an easy like, and not necessarily like going on out on a limb and being like, I don't really know these people, maybe they'll be cool with doing this today or whatever. There was a couple acts like that, but most of them were local. Like Sun Stereo was our headliner, and we had Yap Trap, Sweet Milk, Terminus Victor. Like, we had some great artists show up. And not only was Nate just like super hospitable, super wonderful to work with, like he was also really helpful with like making sure we had sound people that were on staff. One thing that I thought was really cool about all the artists that we asked was that some of them have, like I said, do have a pretty solid following, and probably if they wanted to, they could have been booked somewhere else, and they likely would have gotten paid more in order to do that.
Right.
And like, of course we paid them, and like, but it was one of those things where like, we also have to keep a lot of things under budget and stuff like that. So Nate finding excellent sound people along with like all of the bands being like, oh yeah, that's fine. Like, that's like, you know what, if this is what you can pay us, perfect. Or whatever. There wasn't really any pushback from anybody like saying like, oh no, I need this XYZ amount or whatever.
What do you think Champaign-Urbana could do better?
I think giving people a chance that you aren't really sure. For instance, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, we're about to do our second show. Like, we don't necessarily, we're working on it, but we don't necessarily have a following. We don't have, I mean, we certainly, like, for instance, Ethan and Matt were in a band previously, and I don't remember what the name of that band is. And like, but like, we have somewhat of a presence in the music scene, but we don't have it as Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. And being willing to allow new artists the opportunity, even if it's just, I mean, we'd be happy to open for any band. So like, for instance, like, it doesn't necessarily need to be like, oh, we're the top of the bill or anything like that. Like, just giving more artists a chance to get their music out there, which I think the Space is doing a great job. And so and Rose Bowl with the Hootenanny, like, they have open mics once a week. Like, more places doing stuff like that, I think, is important, not just to give people a chance to get their music heard, but also for networking within the community, because you go up and play your 2 or 3 songs and somebody in the audience could be like, you know what, did you want to maybe do a chorus or a hook on this song for me? or like we would be interested in working together on a project. Maybe we could do a show together or something like that. Adding more open mics and things like that to your schedule, I guess, I feel like helps a lot more than people realize.
Honestly, I think open mics are good for if it's maybe not typically a busy day, because then you get people that want to come in and perform that would maybe not normally come in on that day. And
for sure.
I think there's a general perception that, you're just not going to get very many people for an open mic. But I'm like,
in this town?
Yeah, I feel like, yeah. I think that there's that interpretation. I think it's easy to miss the fact that you're going to get all the people that want to come and play for the open mic.
Sure.
That will, buy your food, buy your drinks, buy whatever, but also be able to, at the same time, support the music scene, which I don't know. I just feel like it's an event that can have a bigger effect than most businesses give it credit for. So
I
maybe
agree with that. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of yes-anding your thought of like, it's a good thing for businesses to do because it has more than just one good effect.
I agree. Yeah.
So
it's a win-win-win, all around win, really.
It's a multi-win. Multi-win. There we go. Champaign is Also a Band podcast is proud to support Exile on Main Street. Exile on Main Street, located in the old train station building at 100 North Chestnut Street in downtown Champaign, has been helping to build record collections since 2004. Carrying a wide array of new and used LPs, CDs, and video games. Exile on Main Street has something for just about any music enthusiast and old-school gaming devotee. Exile also hosts regular free live music shows on its stage, so be sure to check out their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for the up-to-date details on the next upcoming event. Open 7 days a week, they can be reached by phone at 217-398-MAIN. That's 217-398-6246. Welcome back. So, of course, Shauna, what is your favorite non-musical thing or things?
So I have a very small, tiny YouTube channel that I've put together that started out during the pandemic, and it's me taste testing food. My toaster strudels video it's getting up to 3,000 hits, 3,000 views or whatever, and I've been chasing that high ever since. I guess I picked a really good opening food option because people would actually search for that or something. It was one of those things where I'm like, I'm bored, I have to be home all the time apparently. So I may as well do something. I've always been fascinated by video editing, so I basically decided to start doing that. And then once I could go out and do more interesting things, I bought a camper van. She's a 15-passenger Dodge Ram Wagon 3500 XL, and her name is Jean-Claude Damn Van, and she's a goddamn van, is what she is.
Say that name one more time.
Jean-Claude Damn Van.
There it is.
It's a goddamn van. Nice. That's my
Beautiful.
slogan.
Excellent.
I've been filming van life vlogs with the van when I've been going out. Not every single time, but most every trip that I've done with the van has been filmed in some way. I'm in the middle of editing mine and my husband's trip to the Grand Canyon, which I'm a very, very slow editor. So
Same.
I mean, this was filmed in the spring of 2024. So I don't know. I had other things I guess I needed. I was planning a wedding during that year as well, to be fair. But so I'm slowly getting those videos out at the moment. And that's sort of the series that I'm working on, is our trip to the Grand Canyon, which we were traveling for 19 days. So it's a lot to go through.
Sure.
A lot of footage to edit down. But it's fun.
Why the trip to the Grand Canyon, or is it because you already knew that you would have a long trip? Like, why did you decide to document that or film that?
I was already sort of filming other van life things, just made sense to continue doing what I was doing, because I have a couple other videos that I filmed before the trip to the Grand Canyon that I have on my channel. So like I was already sort of doing the vlogging thing, I guess. Okay. So I just sort of continued that. Whenever I wanted to get a van of any size or any type, I knew that that was the destination I wanted to drive it to. And then everywhere else is just icing on the cake. But I wanted to drive it to the Grand Canyon. So I bought the van in 2022, and it took me about 2 years to finally get it ready. Because when I bought it, it had holes in the floor, which my buddy Brian patched with license plates. Which, cool fact about that is one of the license plates has my birthday in like the numbers on it. And I was like, I have to use this. Oh,
so you actually can still see all of the license plates?
No. I've covered that up for with flooring and made it nicer than that. Because otherwise it'd just be literally the metal carcass.
Right. Well, that's what I didn't understand. But okay, I built it up and turned it into a camper van, and like the roll top desk is my kitchen. Oh, really? Okay, so it's not just like there's a bed in the back. It's like it's got. I have a little closet too.
Wow. And the filing cabinet is my quote toiletry area that has like the bottom drawer is supposed to be mine, and then the top drawer is supposed to be my husband's, but really it just turns into both of those being mine. Let's be honest.
But I mean, it's like you have your own mobile home with you. Oh, wow.
Yep. And we camped on BLM land. We camped on, which stands for Building Land Management, in case listeners don't know. It's basically you can stay in one spot for at least a 2-week period of time, and then you have to go somewhere else, but you can basically live off the land for free and go off grid and all that good stuff.
So how did you discover that particular, like the Bureau of Land Management?
There's a YouTube channel that I really love called Cheap RV Living, and it's run by this man, I want to say his name is Bob Wells, but I'm not sure if that's his last name. But anyway, Bob basically started this channel to try to get people to understand that if they want to go out and be a nomad and live this life, they can do it. And it doesn't matter what income you make. There are people out here doing this and doing it successfully of all ages and all income levels. And like, you don't need this fancy rig that costs like just $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 out front before you even built it into a van.
Right.
Like, you don't need that. You can just, go find a van, $2,500 or whatever on Facebook Marketplace. That's what I did. And maybe you might have to build it up from scratch, but maybe you won't. I've definitely seen vans for, I would say, somewhere around the $2,500 to $5,000 price range that I probably wouldn't have had to build it up from scratch as much. But at the time, I was really wanting to get something, so that's what I chose, I guess. His channel made me realize, like, I could do that. Even if I just want to camp on the weekends, which is kind of what I do mostly with it, especially going to music festivals, because it's a van. So it's small enough to fit in a parking lot, and you don't have to pay extra for whatever, like the extra fee for an RV camping, because you fit in the same parking spot as everybody else. You don't get to necessarily branch out and build up your canopy and really establish a camp at that spot. For me, if I'm at a music festival, I am very rarely at my van. So that's fine. I'm sleeping, maybe doing a little getting ready, and that's usually it.
So besides the YouTube channel that you came across, Bob's YouTube channel, have you always wanted to be kind of that nomad-ish kind of, or is this just like, is this something that if you could do this every single day of your life, is this something you'd want to do, or is this like you enjoy being able to just kind of step out and do this every once in a while?
If I could travel all the time, I 100% would be just like doing like the travel YouTube channel or whatever sort of, like, I don't know, working on the road. Like, you can do so much stuff working from home or whatever anymore, and then your home just happens to be mobile instead of stationary, I guess. So it's something that I would be interested in, but I'm just not. I don't know if or when that would ever happen. But because I know I'm not in a place to do it permanently, I like the idea that I can go out and do it whenever I can. Basically,
right. Are you still taste testing things on
No,
YouTube?
I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I haven't for a long time. There's actually a couple videos I haven't even edited that I filmed like back in 22 or 23 that I'm just like, no, I'm more interested in the whole travel thing. If I could do it eventually, I could edit. It would just be really weird because you're like, why does your hair look like that? Like the last video you just posted from present day, you do not look like this. You actually look kind of older, by the way.
Well, you
have
could,
aged since this video.
You could say that this is the date that this came out.
Sure.
So,
You're
that
right.
you filmed this and people would understand. Not a big deal. But Shauna, thank you for being on the show and telling me about your song Fly Swatter and your favorite Champaign-Urbana venues, what makes a good music scene, and of course your favorite non-musical things. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been fun. Thank you for listening to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. This is Shauna Miller reminding you, great music is out there. Go find it where you live. My Toaster Strudels video it's getting up to 3,000 hits, 3,000 views or whatever, and I've been chasing that high ever since. That's a wrap.
Champaign is also a band.
You almost have an NPR voice. It's so good.
Luhava Studio, South Beaker, on the inside.
She's a 15-passenger Dodge Ram Wagon 3500 XL, and her name is Jean-Claude Van.